Hi guys, welcome back to the After Dark podcast. Welcome to episode 2. Today I'm accompanied by my co-host, of course.
Hi, Isa.
Today's story is about a very brutal murder yet again. I know we did one last week, but this one is an interesting story. So, this is the story of a 5-year-long relationship that ended in a brutal murder. Our story today takes place in Salt Lake City, Utah. A young lady by the name of Tawny Baird was born on June 17, 1993. Tawny's parents described her as being the sweetest and best nurtured baby anybody could ever ask for. Friends would describe her as being beautiful, outgoing, and just so full of life. She was absolutely obsessed with social media. She just loved to post every single moment of her life on Facebook. This was back when Facebook was like a thing. Around the age of 17, Tawny started to experiment with things like smoking weed and drinking alcohol. There was a day, in fact, where Tawny and her friends were hanging out in a parked car and they were just smoking weed when all of a sudden a police officer approached them and ordered them to exit the vehicle after suspecting legal activities were taking place. When he searched the vehicle, he ended up finding weed in the car as well as a bong in the back seat. So he obviously asked everyone who it belonged to, and of course everybody denied it being theirs because nobody wanted to get in trouble. So this is when Tawny stepped up and took full responsibility for the weed and the bong and everything found in the car. Now you're probably wondering why she did this. So basically, in Tawny's mind, she believed that because of the fact she was underage, she would get a lesser punishment than her friends would. So she ended up getting arrested and was charged with a Class B misdemeanor, possession of a controlled substance. Tawny was sentenced to 90 days in a Salt Lake City youth treatment center. She was obviously really upset about this, and she couldn't believe that she now had to spend the next 3 months locked away. Her mother was very upset about this and feared for her safety as well. And she also feared that she would not be able to survive being locked away because she thought Tawny was kind of like a softie who couldn't handle things like that. So while she was in the treatment center, Tawny had trouble adjusting in the beginning, but it all seemed to turn around for her when she met a fellow inmate by the name of Victoria Mendoza. Now, Victoria Mendoza grew up in a troubled home. Her family moved to the United States from Mexico, and they lived really poorly in a 1-bedroom apartment. It was said that Victoria started to get into trouble at a very young age. I believe I read somewhere that she started to run away from home at the age of 10. So she started to get in trouble at a very, very young age. Yeah. So Victoria was serving a 6-month sentence for fighting and truancy. And unlike Tawny, this was not Victoria's first time being locked up. In fact, she had been in and out of these facilities most of her life. Tawny and Victoria became friends rather quickly and bonded over their common love of music. Tawny was really into singing and writing songs, and Victoria liked to create beats and stuff like that. A couple months after knowing each other, their friendship ended up turning into a romantic relationship. Tawny felt really safe around Victoria. She was the happiest when she was with her. There was a day when Tawny's mother came to visit her in the facility, and this is when Tawny came out to her mother and confessed that she was in fact gay, and on top of that, she now had a girlfriend that she met in this facility. So Tawny's mother was shocked, of course, but she was extremely supportive of her daughter and reassured her that she loved her regardless of her sexual orientation. She even told Tawny that she thought Victoria was beautiful. So fast forward to August 2010. Tawny had now completed her 90-day sentence and is set to be released. However, if you remember when I mentioned Victoria, I had said that she was serving a 6-month sentence. So unfortunately for Tawny, she would have to leave Victoria behind while she finished the rest of her sentence. However, this did not stop the two from being together. Tawny reassured Victoria that she would wait for her on the outside and be right there to pick her up on her release date. Tawny was really infatuated with Victoria and was not about to let anything ruin their relationship. So before Tawny walked out of the facility and became a free woman again, her girlfriend Victoria handed her a note to read when she left. I'll talk more about that in a second. So Tawny was picked up at the facility by her best friend Lacey, and the two jumped in the car and were on their way home. During the car ride home, Tawny couldn't help but go on and on about how amazing Victoria is and how much everyone everyone's going to love her once they finally get to meet her. So this is when she remembered about the note that Victoria had handed her before she left. She opened the note and it read, quote, "If you ever sleep with anyone else, I might just have to kill you," end quote.
Wow, that I would have thought that she would have written something nice like, "I'm gonna miss you and I'll see you when I get out."
Yeah.
But that's a big red flag right there.
That's pretty extreme to say, especially after only knowing someone for about 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
Just 1 month later, in September of 2010, Victoria was finally released from the youth treatment center, and just as she promised, Tawnee was waiting outside for her, accompanied by her father, Casey. Now, we know that Tawnee's mother was super supportive and even thought that Victoria was beautiful, but Tawnee's father, Casey, was more surprised and confused than anything else. He didn't understand why Tawnee would choose Victoria out of all people, because Victoria was a little rough around the edges. She had neck tattoos, she was a troublemaker, and Victoria just didn't seem like the type of person that Casey pictured his daughter being with.
Well, you shouldn't judge people just by the way they look, but I would have been concerned after finding out like what kind of people she was hanging out with, and if she was a little rough, then but the looks, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not fair to judge somebody by the way that they look, so. But I think he was just being a concerned father.
Yeah.
And just wanted...
You just want the best for your babies.
Yeah. Tawnee's friends really liked Victoria though, and they thought she was beautiful, really fun to be around. Life with Victoria at this point was good. Tawnee seemed to be really happy and started sharing photos of them together on Facebook, and from the outside looking in, it seemed as though they were the picture perfect couple. However, despite things looking perfect on social media, Tawnee's friends would later say that behind closed doors it was completely different. Victoria had started to show her darker side to Tawnee, and this was obviously something that Tawnee didn't know about Victoria. Victoria would become very angry and jealous over the people in Tawnee's life, such as guy friends on social media. Victoria would often question Tawnee about these guys who were commenting on her photos, and Tawnee would repeatedly reassure Victoria that these guys were strictly friends and nothing more. However, there was an incident where Tawnee and Victoria went out to a bar in a rougher town, and this guy was simply trying to say hello to Tawnee, and Victoria right away stepped in and caused a huge scene by yelling at this man and threatening him with a knife if he didn't leave her girlfriend alone. This definitely made Tawnee realize that Victoria was no joke, and she definitely knew now that Victoria carries a knife on her. It was said that Victoria had an infatuation with knives and that she always needed to carry them on her for some reason. She just had a thing for them.
And Tawnee never knew that she was carrying weapons?
No, she didn't know this until that day, and friends had told Tawnee that, oh yeah, that's her thing. She just loves to carry knives all the time. She has an obsession with knives. And of course, Tawnee and her friends thought that was kind of weird, but they had said that they thought that maybe because of the fact that Victoria lives in a rougher area, she felt the need to protect herself.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's what they thought. However, there was another incident where the two were hanging out, and Tawnee was on social media when she started to receive text messages from one of her guy friends, and this angered Victoria, so she started accusing Tawnee of cheating on her with these guys and started to yell at her and become aggressive towards her. After a long heated argument, the two decided it was best to part ways, and they ended up breaking things off. Now, not long after this, Victoria ended up sleeping with Tawnee's best friend in order to get revenge on her. This obviously upset Tawnee because she still really loved Victoria and really cared about her, but Victoria claimed that she felt guilty and regretful about sleeping with Tawnee's friend and wanted to get her back. So in an attempt to win Tawnee back, Victoria uploaded a YouTube video titled, quote, "I'm sorry, Tawnee Baird," publicly apologizing to Tawnee and asking her to give Victoria a second chance. I will link the video down below on our YouTube channel so you guys can go watch it for yourself. It is still public, so you guys should go check that out. But basically, the video ended up working and Tawnee went right back to dating Victoria. Now let's fast forward to the summer of 2012. Victoria went to live permanently with Tawnee and her family after Victoria's mother lost her battle to cancer. However, their new living situation only made things worse. The two started to fight more and more over the smallest things. It seemed as though they both had trouble letting things go, and that was a huge huge problem in their relationship. Victoria would regularly accuse Tawnee of cheating and flirting with guys online, which Tawnee claimed was not true. It was said that Victoria's short temper was getting worse and worse. She also started to become very controlling over Tawnee and didn't want her leaving the house, hanging out with other people, or talking to anybody on social media. It seemed as though Victoria felt threatened by these guys on Facebook and was insecure about Tawnee having guy friends. However, despite the relationship being so rocky, Tawnee continued to post pictures of her and Victoria on Facebook as if everything was picture perfect. So up until this point, the fights between the two had only been loud, heated arguments. However, there was a day where they were hanging out again as usual, and all of a sudden, Victoria yet again got upset at Tawnee because of the fact that Tawnee refused to unfriend some guy on Facebook. So Victoria started to accuse Tawnee of cheating again, would even say that Tawnee was going to go back to dating guys again. Well, sometime during this heated argument, Victoria struck Tawnee in the face so hard that Tawnee's nose started bleeding. And this was a big turning point in their relationship, to say the least. However, Tawnee would continue seeing Victoria even after this occurred. So when the two went home later after the incident, Victoria told Tawnee's parents that Tawnee was being jumped by multiple girls and that Victoria was just trying to help save her. This ended up working because everyone believed Victoria's story. It was said that Victoria was a great storyteller and she seemed so believable, so nobody suspected that Victoria had actually been the one to cause Tawnee's face injuries. Now, not only did Tawnee have a bleeding nose, but she also had one of her front teeth knocked out and her chin was very bruised. And she had to pass on this story about being jumped and that was why she was all beat up. So of course, even after all of this happened, Tawnee would still continue to post on social media and make everything seem like it was perfect, even though their whole relationship had been extremely toxic, and Victoria seemed to act a lot more violently towards Tawnee as their relationship progressed. Nobody knew what was really going on, and no one was prepared for what was going to happen next. So on October 17, 2014, Tawnee and Victoria got invited to dinner by a few of their friends in the hopes to ease some of the tension between the two. Friends would say that Tawnee was having such a good time, she was smiling again, it seemed as though she was getting back to her old self. Victoria, on the other hand, wasn't having a good time. She seemed like she didn't want to be there, she had a sour look on her face the whole time, allegedly, according to Tawnee's friends. And it was really obvious to everyone. Sometime during the dinner, Victoria was watching Tawnee be happy again with her friends, and this is when she realized that she was slowly starting to lose Tawnee. The fears of Tawnee leaving her for a man was starting to consume her more than ever. This is when Victoria ordered Tawnee to leave with her and basically told her, "Say your goodbyes because we're leaving." Of course, Tawnee didn't want to leave. She asked Victoria why they had to leave, and Victoria's answer was because she had to go to work the next morning. So Tawnee really didn't want to start a fight with Victoria in front of everyone, so she ended up saying her goodbyes, and the two left the restaurant alongside Tawnee's friend Lacey, who needed a ride home.
Well, that's another sign of toxic behavior, like trying to control you, and they don't want to see you happy. And once you're happy or you're having a good time, they decide it's time to go. So that's another red flag, girls and boys.
Yes. After dropping off Lacey, Victoria and Tawnee continued their car ride home when out of nowhere, Victoria started to accuse Tawnee of cheating and saying that Tawnee was going to leave Victoria for a guy on Facebook. At this point, Tawnee had had enough. It had been 5 years of cheating accusations, non-stop arguments, and just overall toxicity. Tawnee had always claimed that she was faithful throughout the whole relationship, so she really got tired of always being accused of cheating. She reminded Victoria that in fact, Victoria had been the one who would cheat on Tawnee during their relationship. Tawnee also told Victoria that the relationship was over and that she had had enough and just wanted to move on. This is when Victoria pulled out a knife she had always carried and she started to stab Tawnee while she was still driving. After stopping the car, Tawnee was still driving when she was being stabbed by Victoria. Yeah. So after she stopped the car, Tawnee attempted to defend herself, obviously against her attacker. However, Victoria ended up stabbing her 46 times until she died in the driver's seat of her car. So Victoria then placed Tawnee's dead body on the passenger side of the car and drove to an empty church parking lot. At around 1 a.m., deputies with the Ogden Police Department were dispatched to the parking lot in West Ogden after receiving a call about a stabbing. Well, Victoria had called her sister out to the scene, and and allegedly explained to her what had just happened and asked her to call 911. When officers arrived, they found Tawnee's body in the vehicle, suffering from multiple stab wounds to the face, neck, and chest. Sadly, medical personnel pronounced Tawny Baird dead at the scene. She was only 21 years old. So Victoria was obviously arrested and brought in for questioning. Now, Victoria claims that at this point she had no idea that Tawnee was dead. She thought that she was just injured. She didn't realize the severity of what had just happened. So Victoria claims that she just wanted to scare Tawnee but not kill her. She also claimed that she had only stabbed her 4 to 6 times, when in fact it had been 46 times. So she told Ogden police that while driving on Interstate 15 with Tawnee, two got into an argument when she quote unquote lost it. She then told police how she pulled out her knife and then stabbed her many times. During her trial, she ended up pleading guilty and said, "I have no excuse for what I did. It's why I'm pleading guilty." Victoria Mendoza was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 16 years to life in prison. Again, another person who killed somebody only gets like 16 years. That is so unfair.
How old was Victoria?
I think Victoria was around the same age.
21.
21, 22 maybe. Yeah. Don't quote me on that, but I believe she was around the same age.
Wow, that is so sad and disappointing. Like, only 16 years for taking somebody's baby away from their parents. Like, yeah. That is so unfair.
Now, here's something interesting that I found. Allegedly, Victoria's sister claims that Tawny and Victoria's relationship was really rocky, as we all know, and that in fact, Tawny was often the primary aggressor in many instances. So Victoria's defense team used this information to build a defense known as battered woman syndrome. We cannot prove or disprove this claim. It is just a claim. This is all alleged, but they basically wanted to say that Victoria was a battered woman trying to get out of a shitty situation.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. However, Victoria followed this with, quote, "I'm pleading guilty. Doesn't matter if you're a battered woman or not. You just don't stab and kill someone," end quote. Tawny's family and friends hope to see Victoria behind bars for the rest of her life and have written letters and plan to attend every single parole hearing to ensure that Victoria does not get out.
I would do the same thing.
Yes, they were obviously very upset. They claimed that they had not seen this coming at all. They did not believe that she would ever be capable of doing something like that. And it just, like in a quick instant, just in a bit of rage, a young 21-year-old was killed over nothing. So that, you guys, was a tragic story of how a 21-year-old was murdered by her girlfriend, basically over nothing.
This just goes to show you that the first time that they struck you or the first time they're aggressive to you, you should leave, because it wasn't just the one time. It just never stops, and it escalates from there.
Recognize the red flags.
Yes, you got to recognize the red flags. Their temperament, if they threaten you all the time, if they don't let you have friends.
If they hit you.
Like, don't put up with it. Nobody should put up with it. Nobody deserves to be treated that way.
And we really want to emphasize how important it is, if you or someone you know is suffering from domestic violence, please contact the National Domestic Hotline and recognize the signs of a unhealthy relationship and get out right away, because things like this could happen.
They do happen.
They do happen, yes.
There you have it, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed our second podcast. If you have any suggestions or anything, ideas for us,
yes,
let us know. Comment, make sure to subscribe and like.
Yeah, we're also making a TikTok, so you guys be on the lookout for that, and just basically follow us on all of our social media. Yes, to keep updated on new episodes, and so you guys can...
We hope you like it. We're having such a great time making these videos and recording these stories for you guys, so we hope you enjoyed as much as we do. Oh,
and thank you so much for all the support and love on our first episode. You guys...
We were so happy.
We were so excited. You guys are awesome. We appreciate you so much. So thank you for watching and listening to our podcast. All right, you guys, be sure to tune in to the next episode, because it's gonna be a good one.